Today is February 22nd, 2023. My name is Rob Carter of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, a few things today in the program. A retired doctor who later served in the Virginia Department of Health and later in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. She's a Democrat, but she was interviewed recently, and she stated that back in 1974, when she was a medical student at the University of Chicago, while she was married and on birth control, she discovered that she was pregnant. Well, quote, "If I had continued that pregnancy, I would have had to either give up my medical career or postpone it for a number of years," unquote. So what did she do? Well, logically, she aborted her baby, and she never regretted it. Quote, "I would never have been able to accomplish all that I did if I had continued that pregnancy. For me, there was nothing more frightening than an unplanned pregnancy, and nothing more exciting than a planned pregnancy." Well, she later on had 2 boys. "It's like night and day. It's not even comparable," unquote. Well, this story may not be that newsworthy because we've all heard about cases like this where a woman will sacrifice her baby on the altar of her career. And, it's all about her advancement, and the baby is just in the way. But it is noteworthy that this reinforces the tragic consequences of the liberal pro-abortion mindset. There are 2 types of pregnancies: planned pregnancies that are celebrated, and unplanned pregnancies that are to be avoided at all cost. Well, a little bit of biology here. There is no difference. I'm not a doctor, but bear with me. There is no difference, biologically speaking, between a 2-month-old fetus in the womb of a woman who wants to have a baby than a 2-month-old fetus in the womb of a woman who desperately does not want to be pregnant. That baby, that physical entity in her womb, is there whether you like it or not. It's a fact. That child is in the womb. Okay. You'd think the doctor would grasp that. It's the same physical reality, a baby growing inside her uterus. But it all comes down to how you assign value to that little one. Obviously, the doctor in the story valued her career so much so that she was willing to kill for it, or at least have somebody else do the killing. It's all about me and very little about thee. My life has value, your life has none. My career, my wants, my desires, my money in the bank, my prestige as a member of the medical profession. People look up to me. You little fetus in my uterus, you are just in the way of my happiness. I do not care about your future, your happiness. My future is all that matters. Isn't that the mindset we hear? That it's about my choice, my body, my choice. It's all about self. How sad to have so little respect and value for a life in the womb. I've said it before, and I'm sure most pro-lifers have said it 1,000 times. The pro-abortion ethic or mentality is the most selfish and self-centered worldview in society today. There is no love, no compassion, no self-sacrifice, no responsibility, no doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. The golden rule. How sad. Okay, in other news, a group called Catholic Action for Faith and Family is sending out 41,000 copies of Cardinal Raymond Burke's instructions to Catholic priests and bishops on when to deny someone Holy Communion. Well, I talked about this last time, about this whole issue of pro-abortion politicians and how they are not adhering to the Catholic Church's teachings on the sanctity of human life. Well, according to lifenews.com, every priest in America will be receiving this statement. Said a spokesman for the group, quote, "There was a great misunderstanding and many misconceptions about this issue. It is presented by some clergy that there really is never a situation where Holy Communion should be denied to a public and unrepentant sinner who professes to be Catholic. Most clergy have not studied the issue in a formal canonical way and only know what is presented in discussions and in the media," and I would add, a distorted media. Cardinal Burke wrote this study to better explain the Church's history and wisdom in having canon law that addresses the issue. And he adds, "This is not Cardinal Burke's opinion," unquote. Quote, "No matter how often a bishop or priest repeats the teachings of the Church regarding procured abortion, if he stands by and does nothing to discipline a Catholic who publicly supports abortion, and at the same time presents himself to receive Holy Communion, then his teaching rings hollow." And Burke even wrote, quote, "To remain silent is to permit serious confusion regarding a fundamental truth of the moral law," unquote. Church law is based on love and restoration, not on punishment. Quote, "It is charity to correct someone who is going down a wrong and sinful path to perdition. And that is the role of the clergy." Moving on. Yesterday, the New Mexico House approved a pro-abortion bill that would force teachers and school nurses to help students get secret abortions without parental knowledge. The bill now goes to the state Senate. The vote was 38 to 31. Remarkably, even 6 Democrats voted against this bill. That just goes to show or tell you how radical this bill really is. So we'll keep our eye on this because it's now for the state Senate. This is still a long ways away from becoming law. Well, moving on. 20 state attorneys general have written a 7-page letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray concerning the Justice Department's targeting of pro-life Catholics. We did talk about this last time with Jim Jordan from the Judiciary Committee. And, it's this issue of targeting pro-life Catholics. And the American citizen needs to get answers from these 2 gentlemen, Garland and Wray, as to why the FBI and the Justice Department are going after pro-lifers. Okay. Also yesterday, a group of pro-abortion groups in Ohio have introduced a ballot proposal that would make abortion a constitutional right. So, mark my word, this is the logical consequence of the Dobbs decision. The Supreme Court sent the issue back to the states to decide. So let me give a little history here. Back in the late 1960s, several states, about a dozen, enacted modest abortion reform legislation. Basically, abortion would be legal in the first trimester for rape, incest, or fetal deformity. And most of these states had residency requirements that you had to live there at least 90 days to qualify to get an abortion in that state. Okay. But the problem is that kind of legislation took time. too much time. You have it has to be written, and it has to go to a committee, then it has to have hearings, then you got to go to the state house, and then the state senate, and then the governor's got to sign it. All these steps take time. But if you pro-abortion leaders agreed the best way to get legal abortion from A to Z, the fastest route, was through the courts, primarily through the federal courts. And that's how we got Roe v. Wade, by a Supreme Court decision that nullified the laws in all 50 states. Okay. Well, now fast forward to 2022, the Dobbs decision, the citizens are back in the game again. But a majority of voters, here are some of the consequences. A majority of voters in California and Vermont rejected pro-life referendums in the midterm election. And we know what happened in the state of Michigan with Proposal 3. Dobbs has energized the pro-abortion people, and they voted this past election in huge numbers. These groups in Ohio are banking on the same result. Even if the Ohio legislature is pro-life and would theoretically pass pro-life legislation, a ballot proposal gets around the legislature or the legislators. It takes the issue directly to the voters. And if this were to pass the voters as a constitutional change or amendment, the Ohio legislature has no recourse. They cannot intervene or stop it because the voters have had their say. So these are dangerous times. These are dangerous times that, unfortunately, the Dobbs decision has created this scenario where in some states, that are very, very conservative, a ballot proposal either wouldn't get enough signatures, or if it went to the voters, it wouldn't pass. But in some states, perhaps even like Ohio, there might be some concern that the Dobbs decision energized and activated so many pro-abortion people who may not necessarily be regular voters, but if they could come out and turn out in huge numbers, they could pass very dangerous pro-abortion referendums like what happened in Michigan. So it is dangerous. Pro-abortion voters are becoming confident. I'm sensing that. They are becoming confident that if people get a chance to vote, they will vote to permit abortion. And the way it's written, usually it's going to be abortion through all stages of pregnancy. So we will have to follow this case in Ohio very closely, because what happened in Michigan, especially in Michigan, is a bellwether for other pro-abortion groups to follow the strategy that was hatched in Michigan, to get those things on the ballot. I'm sorry, not on the ballot, but as a referendum, so the voters can decide. The voters decide. So with that sobering statement, I'll let you go, and I will see you next time.